Hi, I'm Kathryn Bruner, owner of KBR, and today I'm going to talk to you about real estate. So I've compiled a couple questions that are commonly asked in this industry that I want to share with you today to help you be better prepared for your purchases. So one of the first questions we're going to talk about today is, how long does it typically take to buy a home? And buying a home, that can depend on a lot of aspects. So once you're under contract, a typical transaction takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days. However, there are a lot of variables to take into consideration with that time frame, because prior to the 30 to 45 days, you actually have to find a house that you can put under contract, and that's not as easy as you might think. So especially in the state of North Carolina, we are in a very competitive market right now. A lot of houses are going at or above asking price. So in addition to the 30 to 45 days it might take for the contract to actually be fully executed from the time you go under contract, you need to prepare yourself that it might take anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks for you to actually find that home and beat out other competitors to get the one that you want. There's other variables to take into consideration too when you're actually going through the home buying process. You might get the inspection done and then all of a sudden there's tons of things wrong with the property. You might have went with a bad lender right out the gate, and for some reason 2 days before you're supposed to close, something happened and now all of a sudden you have to find a new lender. Same thing with attorneys and realtors. Yes, we all make mistakes, but doing your research, vetting these people prior to making a purchase, and having a strong qualification letter and making sure that you do your research will help you a lot. Another question I get asked a lot is, what is the difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market? So the difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market on a very basic level is just inventory. If there are a lot of houses available, it's usually a buyer's market. If there are not very many houses available and inventory is low, the sellers have the advantage and therefore it's a seller's market. However, people usually use that term in a very broad sense. Now, affordable housing a lot of the time stays in a seller's market range because investors purchase in that price range, first-time home buyers purchase in that price range, and there's usually low inventory for things that are affordable. On the exact same day that these homes might be in a seller's market, luxury housing might be in a buyer's market. Usually things that are over $1 million sit for a much longer period of time, and therefore the people leveraging the finances to purchase something like that are typically in the buyer's favor. So when you hear that term, make sure whatever market we're in is applicable to the price point that you're purchasing in. A question that I get asked, especially when I'm working with sellers, is, what is the disadvantage of overpricing your home? And there are a million disadvantages to listing your house for market value. You do not make more money in the long term, and it ends up costing you so much time, paying multiple mortgage payments, and just other things that you wouldn't even think to consider. So the reason that it's a huge disadvantage to overlist the price of your home is, one, you price yourself out of your buyer's price point. And this seems ridiculous, but what happens a lot of the time is, even if you find a buyer that absolutely loves your house, that they're willing to pay an astronomical amount for whatever the property is listed at, they still typically have to get a mortgage. That mortgage lender is going to send out an appraiser who's going to do an appraisal on the property. Whatever that house appraises at is the market value of the home, and that is the extent of the mortgage that those buyers can get. In some cases, you might be able to get a buyer that's willing to pay over market value for the property, but a lot of times you won't, and they'll probably walk at that point, which means you were probably just under contract for the last 20 days. Your house was off the market for the last 20 days, and when you go to put it back on the market, other buyers are going to ask why the contract fell through, and you're going to lose your leverage in negotiating aspects. A lot of people also say, oh, well, I'll just put it on the market for this price, and then if it sells, I'll make all that money. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just drop the price. Never, ever drop the price on a listing, because all you just told every single buyer that's watching this home is that you're desperate to sell and you will lose your leverage. A lot of times when you first list a house, if you list a house within the market value of the home, you will have so many buyers that come to that property so excited to purchase it that the market finds value. If your house is listed under market value, that's usually a really good thing, because then you'll get multiple offers on the property, which can bring it above value. And if you can articulate to an appraiser the value of that property, a lot of times you'll actually get it. So just some things to take into consideration when you're listing your home, that there are advantages to appropriately pricing your home. So that way it's not sitting on the market too long, and that way you don't overprice it and you don't have to price cut and you don't lose your leverage. So some other things to take into consideration when you're purchasing a home are the different types of ownership. So Owning a single family residence versus owning a condo versus owning a townhouse are very different types of ownership and things that you probably want to think about when you're buying. So for a single family residence, you own the land, you own the mineral rights to the land, you own the real property, which is usually the structures that are on the house, like structures that are on the property, like the house or a barn or a garage or something like that. And the easiest way to tell the difference between real property and personal property, I always tell my clients to, if you were to take the house, flip it upside down and shake it, anything that falls out is typically personal property, and anything that stays is real property, which is what you own. So for a single family residence, in addition to the land and the mineral rights and the structure real property, you also own the air rights. With a condo, that's a little different. You only own the airspace, which is inside the four walls of that property. And then with a townhouse, that is kind of a combination between a single family home and a condo. With a townhouse, you own the land, you own the real property, but then you have shared walls. So if things like this might be an issue for you in the future, that you don't necessarily want to negotiate repairs with your neighbor, you don't want to deal with HOA having to fix the walls of your property, take that into consideration when you're purchasing something, because maybe a single family home is what's right for you. So thank you so much for watching today. I'm Kathryn Bruner, owner of KBR, and if you have questions or comments you'd like to reach out with, please feel free to email me or contact me on Instagram.